Hey guys, what's happening? Mike Miller with the Herald Times.
Andy Witchery, Indiana Daily student, making my Scoop Talk debut here in Maui.
Really appreciate it, Andy.
Yeah.
About a handful of us who made the trip out here to Hawaii. This one didn't start, this trip at least didn't start the way anyone saw it coming. This was a trip Indiana made really thinking it had a legitimate shot to win it. I mean, last time they were out here was 2008. We all know how that season went, the beginning of Tom Crean's tenure, now in its 8th season. They thought they could win this tournament. They're going to be playing the rest of it in the loser's bracket now after an 82-78 win to Wake Forest, a team picked to finish, I think, 11th in the 15-team ACC. Wake Forest was the aggressor from the very first minutes, and outside a couple 9-0 runs in the second half. That didn't change very much. A lot of problems with this one. Don't know exactly where to start, but I think I know where to start. Defense. Such a problem last year. Saw some warning signs, I guess you could say, against was it Austin Peay? And yeah, showed up again here in Maui. Really concerning defensive effort against Wake Forest, which basically penetrated, moved around ball screens, did basically everything it wanted and needed to do underneath the basket. 52 points, I believe, in the paint, just an unacceptable number for Indiana.
They put up 50 in the first half. I mean,
50 points in the first
this team
half.
was on pace. You mentioned the 11th place preseason team for the ACC. Put up half a century in the first half.
As bad as Indiana's defense was last year, they never gave up 50 points. I think Louisville had 48 in that game in New York, and then actually in New York also Georgetown had 47 in the second half of that overtime game last year. But no one scored 50.
No.
Especially not a team, again, who was picked to finish at the bottom of their conference. Wake Forest has some guys, but man, this is very flat, uninspiring, lacking overall effort. It wasn't just the defense. Defensive problems were probably the main issue, but there was a lot wrong with the offense too. We saw both the good and bad Troy Williams, and Troy Williams led Indiana with 16 points. Also had 5 turnovers. I mean, the points are one thing, but the bigger takeaway for me was just the turnovers, the non-existent presence on the boards. I mean, when Thomas Bryant was struggling so mightily to really lock it down there, I mean, forgive me, I don't want to mispronounce his name, Dinos Mitoglou for Wake Forest. I mean, he had 18 points in the first half, really schooled Bryant. And when Bryant very obviously, was having trouble sticking down defensively, he got very little help from everyone else around him.
Yeah, he went to the bench actually too pretty early in the first half. We saw they put Colin Hartman out there.
Yeah.
They tried Bryant, Williams in the second half. Or sorry, Bielfeldt, not Bryant, on Mitoglou, and really no one worked in the first half. You mentioned the 18 points, only missed one shot, and it was a 3. And then in the second half is when Devin Thomas took over and had 13 of his 21 points in the night. It didn't matter, who was scoring from Wake Forest or who was defending from IU. The combinations didn't matter. The point was that they could go wherever they wanted on the court and then score.
Yeah, I actually thought Hartman did a pretty good job on Mitoglou, especially early in the second half.
He had the speed, but not the size.
Yeah. And then he picked up his third foul 2 minutes in, and by that point, Devin Thomas was well on his way to taking over. I covered Devin Thomas in high school, actually, back in Pennsylvania. I saw him break a backboard once.
There we go.
Delayed a game.
The more you know.
He was very similarly dominant here today against Indiana. We can do a whole scoop talk on defensive issues, but that was unfortunately not the only issue here today. Offensively, beyond the turnovers, shot selection. Looking at you, Troy Williams. A few of those shots very ill-advised. I think at one point Williams took close to an open 3 up at the top of the key and then banked it off the rim, and Crean just motions at him. Troy, I think he said something like, "Troy, no." Like,
that's how you speak to a dog, right? But I mean, Troy, talented player, right? But you have the yin and the yang of which Troy is showing up. We saw both today because I thought at times he played maybe better than his stats, but you mentioned the 5 turnovers, and he was IU's lead guard for pretty much half this game, especially the first half, and worked sometimes and failed terribly at other points too.
Uneven at best, as I mentioned. And then you get down to it. I mean, Indiana was up 9 points, I think, at the
7:34 left.
Yeah, at the tail end.
There was an IU chant echoing around the stadium, up 9. Blackman, who hadn't scored the entire day, had 5 points in a row, and I thought IU was going to coast to the finish line, honestly. But then after that, they ended on a 19-6 run in favor of Wake Forest, and that was pretty much the ball game.
Yeah, at the tail end of that 9-0 run, you certainly thought that Indiana was about to pull away. Not the case. Wake Forest pushes back in the final few minutes, and back-to-back possessions there, I think in the last minute and a half. Indiana had 2 shots there One as the shot clock expired on a floater by Yogi Ferrell. 2 shots that didn't even hit the rim. Just empty possessions that turned into Bryant Crawford easy layups on the other end. I mean, the guy got around ball screens. He just got to the rim at will, it seemed. Just way too easy for him. You know, he's a guy, when you look at this Wake Forest team, they're obviously rebuilding in Danny Manning's second year as coach. But Crawford's one of those guys. He's a 4-star guard they brought in as a freshman this year. He's one of the guys they're hoping can turn it around. Made a mighty impression today. I mean, gosh, I think in his last 2 games coming into today, he had 21 in each. Yeah. So he's off to a really good start. Indiana knew what they were in for, a guy who was going to try to get him on that penetration, had no idea how to stop it. After the game, there was a lot of blame to go around. As you mentioned, Crean called out Troy Williams. He called out a lot of the effort underneath the basket. Just not enough rebounding to go around, not enough awareness, really. Just not enough will, frankly. And Crean also called out himself. He blamed some of the substitutions. We asked him about that after the game. Didn't give anything specific, but just said, really, I guess, when asked what substitutions he really would have maybe done over again, he just kind of pointed, I think, to the lack of tenacity on the glass, and I guess he was basically saying that they needed more of a presence there, which is clearly true.
Which wasn't wrong. Yeah, no, he mentioned all those buzzwords of effort, hustle, grit, tenacity. I mean, IU essentially lacked those for all but 10 to 15 minutes tonight. He mentioned, Troy was the one player that he actually called out. He mentioned the whole team as disappointed in them, but Troy was the one guy who said if you play 36 minutes and you're 6'7", you need to grab at least 1 offensive board, and he had three defensive rebounds, and that was it.
Yeah. Well, this was a game that Indiana was not supposed to lose. Certainly not like this.
No.
But yeah, some of the same problems we saw last year. Some of the same problems I think a lot of folks, including the Hoosiers, thought were behind them, reappeared today on the islands here in Hawaii. From here on out, Indiana's going to be playing the losers bracket. That begins Tuesday afternoon.
Bright and early, 9 a.m. our time.
Yeah, 2 Eastern.
2 Eastern back home.
Against St. John's, and this is a very bad St. John's team, very bad. And we'll see what kind of effort they come out with tomorrow. I mean, again, this is an Indiana team that thought they were going to compete for a championship here. That's not the case. They're going to be playing the worst team in the bracket outside Chaminade.
You may not be wrong. No, they might be the actual worst team. Remember, they lost by 32 to a D2 team. So they're rebuilding. They're almost like, honestly, I said, they're like the IU team from 08.
Yeah.
New coach, new players. IU should, we'll see, but they should win big tomorrow.
We'll see then, guys. Thanks for watching.